to the blockchain social impact, the future is now. We'll be muting all attendees during the sessions. If you would like to submit a question, please place them in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to address as many as possible throughout the event. Also, this event will be recorded for archival, educational, and related promotional purposes. If you choose to participate in the event, you're presumed to consent to use of your comments in the recording. If you do not wish to be recorded, please contact the event organizers. By attending or participating in the event, you are giving your consent to be photographed and/or video recorded, and you are waiving any and all claims regarding the use of your image or comment by Kogod School of Business. The Kogod School of Business, at its discretion, may provide a copy of photos upon written request. And without further ado, we will proceed with our program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Cecina, co-director of the American University Kogod School of Business Blockchain Hub. Welcome to our third annual Blockchain Forum. We have an exciting morning ahead, and to start it off, I would like to introduce John Delaney, the Dean of American University's Kogod School of Business. John?
You're on mute.
John, you're on mute.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, or hello, everyone, and welcome to the third annual Blockchain Forum. We at Kogod are excited to be part of the growing worldwide blockchain adoption, so much so that we have an in-house blockchain hub, as well as this yearly forum dedicated to exploring the advances and future uses of the technology. Today, we're bringing together speakers, panelists, and guests from around the world to learn from one another and to advance blockchain beyond cryptocurrency and into the arena of social impact. Here at Kogod, making a positive social impact is directly in line with our school's mission, using business as a force for meaningful change. Today's forum will explore the many ways blockchain can and is being used to create positive social change. For example, by allowing the UN Food Net program to provide Syrian refugees with access to financial services and deliver food assistance more effectively, and by helping Plastic Bank reduce plastic pollution in our oceans. The World Bank is launching new approaches to address existing problems and serve unmet needs with blockchain through its many innovation labs, while Libra, now called Diem, offers banking services to the un- and underbanked. In 2021 and moving forward, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will continue to use blockchain to track COVID-19 cases. And finally, our co-hosts at the Global Blockchain Business Council, in collaboration with the World Economic Forum, have an exciting initiative to map global blockchain standards, moving the technology forward, easing implementations, and allowing more use cases. Now is a dynamic time for blockchain, and the Kogod School is thrilled to be a part of it. Please enjoy this year's forum, and we hope to see everyone on campus next year for the fourth annual Blockchain Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Dave Treat, who is Senior Managing Director and co-lead of Accenture's Tech Incubation Group. which includes its blockchain business. Dave is also GBBC board chair. Dave?
Thanks very much, and a huge thank you to the Kogod School of Business to host this event. We at the GBBC are incredibly proud to partner in this event. I was looking at the lineup last night and thinking about the opening remarks I would make today, and I was struck. I actually immediately thought of a childhood influencer of mine, and one of his famous quotes. I was struck by, or what was brought to mind was Mr. Rogers talking about his mother, saying that when you see scary things in the news, always look for the helpers. And when I look at the lineup of folks and even what Dean Delaney just referenced around the players and partners around the world that are looking at some of our toughest problems and are the daunting challenges and the tough context that we're in, this is just an incredible lineup of people who are the helpers. And I'm just incredibly proud to be associated with them. I'm humbled to serve as the board chair for the GBBC amongst such a strong group, and incredibly, optimistic that communities can come together in calls like this to think about how can blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, the whole suite of architectural patterns that are fundamentally changing the game about not just our digital world, but the relationship between our digital world and the physical world, the power of being able to have a shared state of information, single source of truth, of provenance, the ability to be clear that I know that I see what you see, and how fundamentally that will change business models. The ability to have uniqueness in the digital world for the first time ever. This is what underpins the notion of, the double spend problem with currency and what has been unlocked in the whole digital currency space. But wider than that, that ability for the first time to have uniqueness in the digital world through the use of these technologies. The ability, therefore, to then have ownership in the digital world, which has eluded us for so long. And then maybe, lastly, the whole notion of being able to, through tokenization, embed the intent, rights, and obligations, so that when I choose to share data with you, can encode into it what I want you to do with it, what rights I have to it, the obligations you owe back to me. These four characteristics of shared state, uniqueness, ownership, and intent are the powerful building blocks that are now enabling all sorts of incredibly creative, entrepreneurial activities around the world to really drive social good. And one of the things I'm most proud of in this community is that that's been the theme all along. When you look at all of the activities here, there certainly are the for-profit commercial enterprise, activities, but more often than not, they're hooked into or side by side with just looking at some of the most dire human problems. And so very proud. The way we think about the world is that there are three main categories of work underway. There's the really important space of digital identity and what the whole pattern of self-managed digital identity creates, this notion of being able to take advantage of that uniqueness and ownership to be able to hold verifiable credentials to create hope that we can actually bring the more than 1 billion people in this world who don't have any access to recognizable or recognized identities into our financial and economic and government and services systems through the use of these technologies. The ability to restart our supply chains that had such wild interruptions and have now faced such incredible creativity to be flexible in the face of the COVID crisis. That ability to have that transparency, the end-to-end control, the visibility. We're really proud of some work that we've been doing around the whole notion of circular supply chain, to be able to, for the first time ever, connect those at the beginning of our supply chains to the consumers at the end, such that the consumers can recognize the behaviors that we want to see in this world. Avoid burning down the rainforests, the not using child labor or slave labor, et cetera, and having those end consumers be able to reward people at the beginning. If you want to see a great video of it that I'm proud of, that our marketing team pulled together, Google Accenture and Red String, and there's a great depiction, and many other partners are working in this space. our ability to address the more than 1.5 trillion financing gap with small, medium enterprises through the use of being able to have this visibility in the role that they're playing in the supply chain and bring the banks into it to be able to jumpstart or restart aspects of our economy through creative financing solutions. And then, lastly, as a third category, the whole financial infrastructure modernization that's underway. As Dean Delaney said, right, Libra and DM offering, a much easier onboarding entry point for financial services. Many companies are looking at this. We're spending a lot of time on this. The notion of what can digital identity plus central bank digital currency, stablecoin constructs, how can this make that on-ramp easier, open up our financial systems to more people, and really try to make and drive real change. So incredibly proud to be amongst all of these helpers. I'm inspired to go back and watch his documentary again, or the documentary of his life again. This is just an incredibly exciting time. I love the topics for today. Looking forward to the panel I'll be on later, and excited to dig into it. So congrats everyone for being here. This is just such an incredibly important thing to focus on and to be able to apply every capability of this innovation wave to the importance of driving meaningful social impact. So with that, I'm going to stop there. And for once, I didn't follow Tomicah, which is always a hard thing to do. So looking forward to Tomicah, your comments next.
Thanks very much, Dave. Next, we have Dr. Tomicah Tillemann, who is the Executive Director of the Digital Impact and Governance Initiative at New America. He works in collaboration with the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank, MIT, and governments around the world to develop a new generation of open source technology platforms to power the public sector. Tomicah?
Well, thank you very much, Bob. I will admit, as perhaps befits a discussion of this sort, despite the fact that we are now many months into the pandemic, as soon as we switched over to the broadcast mode for the webinar, my Zoom has gone into conniptions. And so I am speaking to you all from my phone. I had a brilliant slide deck, truly the most spectacular slide deck any of you have ever seen, that I was going to be sharing as part of this presentation. We may not be able to do that, but we will get by, and it's a pleasure to be with you, and also a tremendous privilege for me to follow Dave Treat, and so proud of his leadership of the Global Blockchain Business Council and the amazing work that you and your team are doing at American University. I want to begin with a challenge that has been with us for some time, but has really been thrown into stark relief over the last few weeks. And that is the fact that if you look around the world, but certainly in the United States, we have institutions that were designed in the 19th century using technology from the 20th century to try and solve the challenges of the 21st century. And it is becoming very evident, if it wasn't already, that that system simply is not working. We are experiencing a breakdown in the trust required to power societies successfully, the likes of which we have rarely witnessed in modern history. And there's some numbers behind this as well. If you put this in financial terms, the US Treasury, which is a pretty good agency, they are a very capable and sophisticated agency, is by their own admission making $175 billion of improper payments each year. That was before the massive amount of stimulus was pushed out the door in a tremendous hurry during the pandemic. Globally, the cost of corruption is $3.1 trillion. That's a lot of money. The cost of tax evasion is $3.6 trillion. You put those numbers together, and it is enough to pay for all of the Sustainable Development Goals, the big targets that the United Nations has established as the 2030 vision for where we should be headed as a planet. So everything from eradicating poverty to ensuring there's clean water for everyone to eliminating climate change could be paid for if we were to address these massive gaps in governance that have opened up over the last few years and are, I think, laying bare the leaky and dysfunctional nature of many of the systems that we rely on to power our societies. This is also showing up very vividly in the way Americans interact with their institutions. Only 17% of Americans trust their government. That is an astonishing figure. And worldwide, it's not much better. Only 20% of people around the planet believe that the system within their country is working for them. So we have some really, really big problems in democratic societies that need to be addressed. And the challenge is, while we have been largely stagnating when it comes to these issues of addressing governance, authoritarian countries and authoritarian governments have been surging ahead. We are going to enter a world in the not distant future where authoritarian nations, by virtue of their dramatically expanded use of technology, are going to know more about every citizen in their society than prior governments could have known about any citizen in their society. And the technology that is enabling this type of surveillance is being exported aggressively and rapidly around the world, including to other democracies. Many leaders in democratic governments have started complaining about the authoritarian fusion of big technology and data and government, but what they haven't done is offer any alternatives. And until they do, we're going to be in real trouble. And lest there be any question, I think it's critical to clarify that the big tech model that we see in the United States and some other democracies is not a real alternative. It is a form of digital feudalism. All of us put in enormous amounts of valuable data every day to make the digital systems that big tech companies rely on work. And yet the benefits go overwhelmingly to a handful of individuals sitting in Silicon Valley and Seattle, the proverbial digital manor houses of our time. And unless and until we can change the nature of that feudal system, we're not going to have a compelling framework to respond to the challenge posed by authoritarian nations. I think it's important for us to look back on the 20th century and recognize that the reason democracies succeeded in the 20th century, and again, I'm not the first person to make this point, Yuval Harari and many others have come to the same conclusion, is that at that time, digital systems were inherently more efficient. They were inherently more successful when it came to decision-making than centralized systems. And the challenge that we are going to face in the 21st century, in an era of artificial intelligence and big data, is designing decentralized systems, designing decentralized frameworks that can preserve the edge for democratic societies in a world that's going to look very different and in a data landscape that's going to look very different than what we have dealt with in the past. There is, however, hope, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. We are seeing the emergence of a new generation of governance platforms that harness the power of decentralized systems like blockchain and artificial intelligence to deliver astonishing benefits for the citizens of democratic societies. We are seeing this in places like Estonia, where that country's full stack digital governance platform delivers gains that are equivalent to 2% of GDP annually. So remarkable increases in efficiency. Even in countries like Bangladesh, which are generally considered to be at the other end of the development spectrum, the new e-governance systems that have been deployed there are saving citizens the equivalent of 2 billion days of time each year. That's a remarkable figure. And when you project those gains out onto countries like the United States, the potential benefits are truly breathtaking. So 2 years ago, we brought together a group of leaders from around the world, heads of government, some of the top open source technologists on the planet, and asked a simple question. Would it be possible to design institutions in a box, open source, decentralized technology systems that could give everyone on the planet access to these same types of gains? Can we build technologies that will help our institutions meet the governance challenges of the 21st century? We concluded that the answer is yes. And in the intervening years, and especially during the pandemic, that thesis has gotten a lot stronger. If you look at the governments that are succeeding in meeting this challenge, places like South Korea, places like New Zealand, places like Taiwan or Estonia, they are all running their institutions on world-class digital governance systems. And for those of us who haven't yet caught up with those solutions, we need to get to work. So this is a moonshot moment. We need to set a goal. And in my mind, that goal is to provide every democratic society with access to world-class, open source, decentralized technology platforms to power more effective institutions by 2030, the target date for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We are fortunately seeing a growing global consensus to make that happen. This year, on the margins of the UN General Assembly, I was fortunate to bring together leaders from around the planet, including the Prime Minister of Norway, the President of the Gates Foundation, leaders from the World Economic Forum, the Linux Foundation, the Omidyar Network, the Rockefeller Foundation, and many of the top multilateral bodies that work on these issues, to start to build a consensus behind a digital decade, a decade during which we will create the architecture required to power the institutions of the future. We've also seen a lot of work and progress on the technology that's going to be necessary to make that happen. We are, for example, working with the state of New Jersey right now to deploy an open source platform that's helping their citizens connect with jobs using the power of artificial intelligence. People are already today in the state of New Jersey gaining access to employment at the height of the greatest jobs crisis we have faced since the Great Depression using this system. We're collaborating with New York City and Baltimore to create a new platform that will give individuals ownership of their information while simultaneously proving their eligibility for critical public services. This is going to be vital at a moment when our unemployment insurance systems and other benefit platforms are breaking under the burden imposed by the pandemic. We need new mechanisms that are going to make it quicker and easier for individuals to gain access to the tools they need, the raw material they're going to require in order to rebuild their lives, while simultaneously preserving their custody and control of the information required to do that. We're collaborating with the World Bank, MIT, and an array of other partners on issues around public finance and taxation, which will be critical to closing that $3.6 trillion gap that is created by tax evasion, that is largely responsible for the deficit, the global deficit of funding for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we're collaborating with partners like the Open Contracting Partnership to develop new open source tools to power public procurement, a $30 trillion engine of global engagement worldwide that could, if used more effectively, enable our institutions and communities to come back from this crisis more quickly. If we do this right, we will emerge with a comprehensive government operating system, a series of modular, open source, decentralized platforms that use the power of blockchain and the power of other innovations that are coming online today to enable citizens to lead their lives in the way they want to control their information, and to solve the immense global challenges that we are confronting at this moment. The coalitions required to make this happen are coming together. And that's the exciting thing about this moment. We are seeing the mobilization of resources and talent necessary to solve this problem, but we need to wake up to this challenge quickly. If we look back at history, we see other transformational technologies that have been co-opted and adapted in ways that proved disastrous to their inventors. Gunpowder was originally invented by Taoist monks in the 9th century and was initially used for entertainment and fireworks. In time, that technology was adapted by European powers and became the basis of the colonial gunboat diplomacy that subjugated the Chinese and many others around the world for centuries. Today, we run a real risk that tools that have been invented in free societies, technologies that have been invented ostensibly to unlock greater freedom and greater transparency and accountability within our nations, are going to be co-opted. And we will be left playing with fireworks while authoritarian governments around the world are building gunboats. This is the risk we face, but it is coupled with a tremendous opportunity. If we get this right, if we are successful in harnessing these tools to build the decentralized systems that will enable individuals to own their own data and enable institutions to provide access to the raw material of progress that citizens need to build their lives, we could open up a new renaissance, a new reformation in what is possible. The progress that we will be able to create in our societies as we provide more equitable access to data, as we provide individuals with greater accountability and transparency in how their information is being used, will unlock progress the likes of which today we cannot imagine. It's on us to make this happen. Nobody else is going to do it. If you are part of this conversation, then you are one of the handful of individuals with access to the information and tools required to be part of this story. And if we work together, we can reach that goal. I look forward to collaborating with all of you to make this happen, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.